Hello, guys. Welcome, everybody, to Blue Purple Haze Podcast. I am your host, Isaac, here, giving you my honest opinions about the Chicago Cubs baseball and the Minnesota Vikings football. Now, talking about the Minnesota Vikings, as we all know, the draft is about coming up in 2 weeks, and I haven't really mustered up a conversation about the draft because when it comes to drafting players, I'm terrible at learning college players and names and all that. I really suck at doing that, to be honest with you, but I will be talking about the overall plan for the Minnesota Vikings as to if I was the GM, if I was Rob Brzezinski, what plan would be more than ideal? I mean, the Vikings could almost go anywhere as long as they don't screw it up, obviously. Because so far they didn't spend much in free agency. The Vikings didn't. So they saved up money in terms of cap. And they're saving up on draft picks so they can try to have quality at the same time quantity of draft picks as much as they can. So as of right now, the Vikings have overall 9 draft picks in this 26 draft. So right now, I would say they didn't spend much in the only big move that they did make was the biggest move I would say they made was Kyler Murray. So overall right now, excuse me, there's a dog down there. Just ignore him. But right now, anyways, so right now I would say the best way to go with the Vikings and what the overall plan would go is would you trade up? Would you trade down? What positions are of need in the draft? Etc. I guess. I can't speak. Anyway, so if the Vikings wanted to trade down or trade up, so in the event they wanted to trade down, I would say maybe if they were to trade, because I would do it under the condition if they traded Jonathan Grenard to an edge rusher needy team. That's where I would go if they were to let go of Jonathan Grenard for a draft pick or something. That's where I would go if the Vikings wanted to trade down. But I would not really like the idea of trading up. If I was Rob Brzezinski, I would not. But really, because what I would say is you have a good number of draft picks. I would say I would almost be content with sticking and picking. And basically, but if you wanted to trade down, let's say in the later, then that's fine to get the player that you want. But right now, I would basically do that later. Or if you wanted to, I mean, I guess it's okay if you trade up later, but the goal is to not do it much earlier in the draft the goal is to not do it earlier as opposed to later. Because, I mean, sure, usually later picks don't usually hit, but I would go with in the earlier stages of the draft, say the first 2 days, I would be almost content with sticking and picking or drafting up or trading up for a draft pick. So that's my stance right now. But as far as position wise, how the Vikings should approach it, as far as what positions they need as opposed to players, because again, I know I don't watch a whole lot of college football, so I don't really have I really don't have like a preferred player, but like here's the deal with like the position of needs that they do need is they already moved out Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave out of defensive tackle. So basically, it wouldn't be the worst idea if they got that in the first round, a defensive tackle. But I feel like, though, most players, most teams would already get the higher, like the top 5 defensive tackles already. So I feel like that would already be a move that other teams are going to make. But I don't know that. But I would be fine with getting a defensive tackle there. They need a center. So a center, basically, since Ryan Kelly has retired, you need a bona fide, solid interior offensive line. If you need to. If you don't really quite trust Blake Brandel in the center position, because I'm a little bit skeptical, because he had an okay, I will give him the fact that Blake Brandel had an okay season in at center, but but that would be my number 2 thing, is going after a center in the first, and then basically my third position I would go with is cornerback, is a secondary, because you have a bunch of players that are inconsistent at the secondary level, like say Byron Murphy, Isaiah Rodgers, Jeff Okudah. It's hard to like trust them long term in order to like make a bunch of plays and all that, but I feel like though you'd be much better if you had great coverage. But the reason I would be fine with the secondary and then go maybe defensive tackle, but I would love to start off. But if I was Rob Brzezinski, I would go with interior defensive lineman. Then you deal with the cornerback position, because you have to start from the foundation to up. Cause this is the NFL where if you get pressure on the quarterback, then your secondary can do the rest of the play, as opposed to leaving the secondary without any pressure hanging out to try force them to make a play. That's what I would do. I would start off with defensive tackle, then secondary, and then maybe a center later. It seems a bit sketchy to go for an offensive line like much later. A defensive tackle, maybe not so. If you wanted to go first center, defensive tackle, and then secondary, that would be an ideal situation that the Vikings could go for. The rest, though, is just basically a toss-up in the air. But, a tight end, though, I was going to go with, the Vikings should get a tight end because they need to replace TJ Hawkinson. I don't feel like the Vikings should be too hasty there. I feel like, because you already have the tight end position, because we know TJ Hawkinson restructured his contract, so you do need a tight end. But however, I feel like though you need to go trenches, because Kwesi did go after trenches last offseason. It did not translate to what we actually thought was going to happen. But I feel like, though, you need to try to do it again. Go after trenches as far as, rookies go. And then you're all set. People say, well, they should go after a running back. I don't think so, really. Although you could get young running backs for good, but no, I would say no to that. Maybe much later. Much later though is again though, but I would be fine with going for a running back much later. But right now, that's my idea. I would start off with interior offensive line, interior defensive line, and then secondary for your first 3 picks. The rest, though, is just whatever is up to Rob Brzezinski. But I think it would be, you would already have a very solid, team if you went that direction, because you just would. I mean, that's just my opinion, though. I mean, let me know what you guys think about the plan. What's your overall plan? Let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Skull Vikings.